You are listening to Come As You Are, the podcast. My name is Tyler, and I am joined by my two friends, Amanda and Stephanie. We are a trio of coaches coming together to explore life's biggest topics. Each episode, we hold true to our name, Come As You Are, by showing up and going live. Whatever we bring to the table that week is what we talk about. No scripts, no planning, just real and raw conversations. And audience participation is always encouraged. Our mission is to create a space where vulnerability and authenticity take center stage, and we believe in the power of deep conversations and soulful connections. So welcome to the show. We're happy that you're here, and we invite you now to just sit back, relax, and enjoy today's conversation. Hello.
Yay! Welcome, everyone.
Welcome.
Hello. We're here.
Our last live show of 2023. Can you believe that?
Woo! No. Not at all. No. Like, how? How is this even possible? I think, and I feel like we hear this every year, and I think I probably say this every year, but each year just feels like it's going faster and faster and faster. Oh my gosh. I'm looking forward to, 2024 and whatever the excitement that brings, but gosh, I can't believe it's another year already.
Do you feel like time is running out of your hands? Like, is that what you were describing?
Yeah, I guess so. But I don't know if I fully actually believe that. But I think as a mom, I can relate to this. You're seeing kids growing so fast, and it's like, holy moly. Yeah, Tyler, tell us.
Yeah, well, okay. So this is a really interesting point. And I read somewhere, and I don't know where I read it or where the article was from, or if it was in a book. I don't know. But they were talking about this concept of time and how as we get older, it really does feel like years are getting shorter because of what Amanda was just saying, where it's like, okay, you're now seeing kids grow up, and all of a sudden your baby's turning, 13 or whatever. And it's like, whoa, oh my gosh, where did that happen? Like, I just remember being 13, And so it's like, they were comparing it to somebody who's 20, their life still feels very, very long. And I mean, granted, we're in our 30s and our lives still should feel very, very long. But I look at my grandma who's approaching 80, and I was like, wow, her time is much shorter. And so, it's like that whole perception kind of thing of okay, we look around and we go, okay, 80 feels like so far away, it's like 50 years away for me. That's a long time, to me, that's a long time. But, for my grandma, 20 doesn't feel that long ago to her, she's always talking. She's like, we talk about the 80s, and she goes, oh my God, the 80s were 40 years ago. And it's like, wow, that, so it is that whole, as we get older, we see younger children grow up. And so that makes us look at time differently. And then by the time we're at the other end of the spectrum and we're looking back, it's such a short, everything just feels this small and that condensed. And so it's this whole weird perception thing, but that is a legit feeling. When you feel like time is flying the older you get, it is a legit thing, because there's different things at play that's helping you, or that's playing into the perception. So I just thought it was a fun
yeah, no, and I can totally see that, because I think too, as we're younger, right, there's a little bit more maybe not that I wouldn't say this doesn't exist when we're older, but there's a certain level of routine and responsibility. And again, not that those things don't exist when we're younger, in our teens, 20s, like that age. I mean, even younger, forget about it, right? There's no even concept, I think. And I think maybe as we get older, we're slowly becoming, we almost are recognizing the timeline of life. Like we start seeing the kids growing up. Like before, I can't even remember. I have a really hard time with timeline. So I'll try and remember, oh, what year did that happen? When did that happen? And it's a lot easier for me to timeline something based on, okay, my son was 2 years old at the time when that happened, or so it actually gives me a very visual timeline of life. And I feel like, especially as adults, as we're getting older, more of those responsibilities and more of the routines come in. So it almost feels like, wake up, do the thing, sleep, rinse and repeat, like that, the cycle, I guess, of just the daily. And yeah, it's really interesting though when you think about that, and then you get to, like you're saying about your grandma, Tyler. And I actually saw my great aunt this week. She's 90. Like, that is just crazy to me to imagine 90 years. And she she's doing all right. Definitely aging, but because she's starting to lose some of her memory. And so she remembers certain things, but witnessing her and seeing at 90 what that looks like, and she was getting so emotional because she had visitors, and that a lot of these people, they're bedridden, and that's what they just lie there all day. And so time actually feels like it's slowing down because they're not really doing much, right? Like they're literally in bed all day. And some of them are, it breaks my heart because they're sad because they don't have any visitors. And I know I've taken that conversation a completely different tangent, but I just was thinking about that as we were thinking of age, right? And looking at like your grandma, 80, right? And then 90, what that looks like. Like, gosh, yeah. So interesting.
I think I also have a cute story here. So I have a lot of people in my family that are over 80, and most of them are still so vital. And it makes me feel, okay, cool, I've got good genes, so yay. And, this happens so often when we get together for like birthdays or family reunions, that the elderlies, they sit there, and at some point they're starting to talk about the people who have died and the things that have changed. I come from a very small village. Everyone knows everyone. And so they start to talk about people who has passed and who moved into whose house and which house got sold and like all of this stuff. And I used to be so bored. Actually, I still am. But especially as kids or teens, we're like so bored by these stories. We know the people, but we really don't care about those kinds of things. And I gotta say, as I grew out of my 20s and here I am now in my 30s, sometimes I listen to those conversations and I ask them questions about it. I'm actually curious what happened. Firstly, because I'm not in my hometown that often, so I really do want to like know what's going on. And also, I don't know, something shifted. Like as a teen, as a young adult, you don't care about those things. And it's so interesting how that shifts. Now, I have no idea why, but I think this is also related to how you perceive time and how you value different things in your life when you were a kid, when you were a teen. Because I really do agree with you, both what you mentioned with like as a kid, we don't even have the awareness of time, right? We live every day to its fullest. We are 100% present all the time. And then when we're teens, when we're young adults, this starts to fade. And I think that's not a good thing. I think we lose this innocence. We lose this this consciousness of just being in the moment and enjoying everything. And I think this is also why later in life we become so like, oh no, we don't have time, or we feel like time is running through our hands like sand, because we have this awareness. And I don't know, there's so many sayings around this thing that once you lose something, how precious it is to you. So when you reach a certain age and you're like, "Ooh, I'm technically through half of my life," you're all of a sudden starting to realize, "Ooh, maybe I should make more use of the time that I have in this lifetime," because you're realizing, "Ooh, I've been through maybe half-ish now, so maybe I should, speaking of like people having midlife crisis, this is usually the time, right? They're like, "Ooh, I haven't done anything, right? I haven't achieved anything. Now I got to like buckle up and do some stuff." Um, so yeah, I think in the different phases of our lives, we perceive time completely differently. And this is why we have these wonderful experiences now where we can say, time's running and feel like I don't have enough, even though what's enough time, right? Like what does that even mean?
I'm glad we're talking about time, and because I have recently been like super fascinated by longevity and like how do we extend life, and I like this is like I just turned 30, okay, and I already feel parts of like my body like hurting, and I'm like, no, I'm too, no, like this cannot be happening. Like it cannot be, like the aging process cannot start now. You know what I mean? And it's made me really take a deep reflection on like health, well-being, wellness, all of these types of topics that like, we take our health for so much, like for granted all the time. Like we do things to our bodies, and we consume things in our bodies, and like all of these kind of things. And like now, for whatever reason, like I turned 30, and then all of a sudden I'm like, well, I don't want to die early. I mean, nobody wants that, obviously. But like, and I don't think I'm like going to die early, knock on wood here. But it's like for whatever reason, I've just been thinking about like how do we extend life? How do we like optimize our health for longevity? So I've been reading like all of these books on it, and it's been really fascinating because I think when you, and this is at least my story, like I found like my career, my calling, my passion. Like I wake up every morning and I feel very excited to like live another day and to like do the things that I want to do. And it's like I don't ever want this to end. And I'm like sitting there with this like, okay, I just want to work and like create and do and be and like like have fun. And I don't know why this is coming up for me, but it's like we look at you know I think we look at aging as like obviously it's inevitable. And I think it's really sad that like so many people, they get to the end of their life and they're in like so much pain and so much misery, and like their memories completely gone, and all of these kind of like things that are happening to them. And is that really how you want to spend the last however many years on earth, not remembering who your family is, or completely lost and feeling like where are you? And because I watched, my great grandmother had Alzheimer's, and it was just like it was eye opening to like see her transition and that decline. And like it was scary. It was very scary to see this lady who like didn't even know who she was, where she was, like anybody around her. And I was like, wow, like I don't want that. Like I want to preserve time, and I want to I want to be young forever. Like that that's like really become a big thing for me recently. It's like I want to be young forever. Like I want to have that youthful energy and you know, kind of like we did as kids, just completely like let go of time, like completely forget about it and just, you know, because I think we focus so much on, especially we talked about this last week, you know, the end of the new year or the end of the year, the new year reflections, goals, like, oh, another year gone. And it's like, what if we just let go of the time and we just, you know, again, allowed ourselves to be present, like the little kids who play all day and run and are like completely free. And yeah, that's like my utopia.
What perfect timing to talk about time, really. Especially like as you're mentioning the new year, Tyler. I think this is especially, I mean, very literally how focused we are on time when it comes to the new year. Like we're literally counting down the seconds till, the clock changes to 12. And what's so interesting about that actually for me is thinking about this idea of, time is just an illusion and it's how we relate to it. Because if we look at even between the three of us, we're all going to be switching our clocks at different times.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like the new year, the official like new year is happening at different times in different places and spaces in the world. And that is such like a mind bend.
Well, I think they're different concepts of time, right? There's like the human-made concept of time. I think this is what you're talking about, right? Like when is it midnight? When does it switch from 23 to 24? And then there is this sort of spiritual concept of time where there's so many theories out there, and one of them being that actually everything happens at the same time. So you're 4 the same time you were 44 and 84. And I think this is a really cool way to look at things. And for me, this definitely takes the pressure off, that not everything is like predetermined. We are obviously the captains of our lives. We get to make the decisions if we take charge. But just this idea that we're all here for a reason, and when we just allow it, we will figure it out, and then there's no wrong move to make. And I really love what you brought up, Tyler, this idea of staying young forever. And for me, when it comes to that, there's different kinds of young. There's this approach to life, having a kind of mental, youthful attitude, of being spirited and driven and purposeful. And then there's, of course, your body, what you mentioned, right? When you turn 30, things are hurting. Why are they hurting? I haven't even done anything, right? And honestly, I went through this too a couple of years ago. I thought, okay, those are problems that I will deal with, or those are things that will come up for me when I'm like 40 something, 50 something, right? Here I am, beginning of my 30s, and I already have those kinds of experiences of like, why does it hurt? Why does the muscle pain not go away? The workout was 2 days ago, right? And it's very interesting how early this started for me as well. And it made me question things too. But this whole idea of having a youthful body, I think this is what most people are focusing on, right? Like this not necessarily the youthful mind, staying sort of mentally fit, but being outwardly fit and you looking young, and thinking that you can trick your body into believing that your colon is only 30 years old when you're already 65 and taking all these supplements or getting the surgeries or whatever to appear and to trick your body into being young. I find that such a fascinating topic. And I think people who are pursuing these kinds of actions, they really are holding on probably to a time when things were hurting less, right? When things were a bit easier. And I think for me, the kind of like conclusion that I drew out of all of this is to say, you know what, it doesn't matter what I look on the outside. Not that I don't care, but it really doesn't matter how other people perceive me. The only person that I care about their opinion is myself. And that I'm focusing on the mental youth, you know, the keeping myself engaged and trying to find things that make me feel like, yeah, I'm living my best life. Like those are things that make me happy. Those are things that make me feel alive. And it's interesting that I think from the 30s onwards ish, the body tells you that. Like the body tells you that this is what you're supposed to do. Like you're supposed to find the things that make you feel joyful, find the things that make you feel alive and purposeful. And if you're not pursuing those things, and you know your body's getting older, your body will tell you that. I think it's one way how our body is communicating with us, that when we don't allow the joy, we don't allow ourselves to live our best life, that our body is just one of the ways how we are getting the signal that something is not right, you know, that we are not aligned with our best life yet. Now I know I started like somewhere else. I went on a full thing here right now. But yeah, I think our bodies are really really smart. Like they know way before we do, and our bodies, they don't forget anything, right? Everything we've experienced, the body keeps the score, and it tells us. So as we grow older, and obviously everything that happens to us, for us, with us, has an impact on our body. And when we keep repeating the same patterns, we can't seem to see them. Our body will show this to us. This is why I think as we turn 30 or 40, these little aches become more and more, because our body had kept tapping us and said, hey, you need to pay attention here, you need to pay attention here. But we don't, right? In our 20s, we don't pay attention to those kinds of things. But then in our 30s, I think, talking about time again and how we perceive them in the different stages of our lives, we do pay more attention to it, because it becomes more important, right? It becomes more important to have a vital, healthy body.
Mm. I'm having a moment. So Amanda, if you have anything, feel free to like chime in, because I'm having a moment and I'm like processing lots of things right now. So
I went from like here to here to here to here. So I'm like, I totally get it. I didn't even know where I was going with all of this. But as I was just finishing, I was like, wow, if I was sitting on the other side, I would need a moment too.
And my initial thought was like, okay, where do I take this? You know, not trying to pre-plan the conversation, but it was like you threw so many little like truth bombs, and I was like, oh, there's a lot there that you just said, and a lot that like, well, I mean, it's just making me do a lot of like deep reflection here in the moment. Stephanie, you're really good at that. You always get that with me. Like you always say something and then I'm like, oh God, I gotta go away and like chew on that for like a long time. Amanda, do you have anything?
Oh my gosh, similar. So many things. Because we started in this idea of time, and then now we've touched on not only just time and the clock and time, spiritual time, and then the body and what our body's saying to us. And oh my goodness, yeah, so many things to think about. And it's really interesting, actually, when even just witnessing that, in the sense of these conversations that we always seem to have, right? Like, just I'm taking a step back because I feel like I'm like allowing it to all sink in. But in taking that step back and really just thinking about how we get into like I mean, we always start the conversation and just it seemed I mean, we just naturally having this conversation and I'm just like always blown away by how deep or also how many different tangents we can get on and how they're also interconnected, right? I feel like often our conversations we're always talking about something different, but there's certain truths, there's certain concepts that are just weaved in through all of those things. And so I'm just actually like taking a step
Mm.
back and missing that part of the
Yep.
conversation. It's incredible.
That Thank you, Amanda. Thank you. That was like exactly what I was experiencing, but I like was so like swirling mode that I was like,
Yes,
what are
really.
what are the words there? And that's a great word to use here is like interconnectiveness. And this is one of those words that I've been thinking a lot on recently about how all of it pieces together exactly like how it's supposed to piece together. And I'm looking at this like again, end of the year, I always go into deep reflection mode in December, like not not thinking about, not making massive plans, but again, just like reflecting on the year and coming back to time and like what, how have I evolved and that 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 is another big word here is like it's the interconnectiveness and then the evolution, you know? And I think so many times we try to control all of the things and we try to control things individually, you know? And we have for example, I'm going to go back to like the body for a minute, we try to control like what we eat and we put ourselves on like these restrictive diets and but then we ignore how stressed out we are, you know, or we ignore that there is, I don't know, conflict happening at that, in your home, some sort of feud or some sort of like relationship drama happening, and we think, oh my God, the diet's going to fix it. No, no. As Stephanie was like so beautifully saying, your body is absorbing everything. It's the interconnectiveness of it all, It's taking in the stress. It's taking in the relationship drama. It's taking in, you know, whatever's happening at work. It's taking in, what you ate and even how you ate it. Like, not even what you ate, but like how were you being in the moment of eating that food, And like there's a beautiful synergy to all of this. There's a beautiful like synchronicity to how it all connects. And so I don't think I think it's really interesting that we landed in this space of time, talking about longevity, talking about health, trying to optimize, all of these things. And, at the end of the day, it's all so synchronized. It's all so interconnected. And that's what's coming up for me is like I think that was the big like explosion that was happening in my brain was like, oh my God. Like, again, we stress so much over the little details and we get so worked up over things way beyond our control. And like, you know, how freeing is it to just sit here and kind of say, you know what, I'm going to let it all go, you know, let it all go. And like what happens again, coming back to my word for 2024, thanks to you two, is being, the year of being. And I love that. And I've been really reflecting and sitting on this and meditating on what is being. And to me, it just comes back to presence. It comes back to now, you know? And there's a certain level of freedom. There's a certain beauty in now, that we never really experience because we're always so caught up on like, oh, what's next on my to-do list or what happened yesterday. And again, it's this like interconnectiveness of like time just comes now, you know? It's like it's not really that complicated, you know? It's really just what is happening now. And I so appreciate that because, you know, this year, if I reflect back on 2023, and I know we were going to kind of maybe do that today, we had kind of briefly discussed that, but I'm going to start it. If I look back on 2023 and this year, this moment of time, my word for the year was transcendence. And so I was thinking about how did I transcend? And I really think this year I embraced more of the now. And in doing so, I transcended multiple areas of my life by bringing peace and freedom and harmony to these spaces, And like the other day, I was talking to my sister was having like a girls' night with her two best friends, and I happened to walk in, and one of the girls was crying, and I didn't get the whole story, but something was happening like in her world, and I just went to this place of like I was like, what if we just let that go? What if we let go of like what happened and we just focus in on the beauty of now? And to me, that was my transcendence moment. Was like this year, I feel like I really connected to the now. And again, I think transcendence is such a big theme and it's such a big topic. And, it seems like one of those really big, like, oh my God, I got to go out and move the mountains and climb, and climb to the top. And really, the biggest transcendence we can make is accepting the now and just being present to what is. So that's how all of this is connecting for me today.
Loving how you're landing there, because I don't think we could do justice to our conversation around time if we didn't bring in this idea of not only being present and being in the now, of course, but also this idea of control. I think that's a big, and I mean, it could go so many different ways when we look at control, but when we look at trying to control everything or control time, or, and when we let go of that control, what really happens to time is something that I think is really valuable and maybe underrated or not talked about enough. I don't know. That's my thought. I think, yeah, bringing in that conversation of control to our conversation of time makes so much sense to me, and I think is really important. So I'm glad that we've gotten to that point, because I think that's also important to mention.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I also these two are for me very, very closely connected, like time, and then do you try and control time all the time, or do you just kind of let it flow? And I think this flow state or being state, I think those are also for me just synonyms, is the antidote to the control. And I want to say that I love that we are going there now. I want to say
me
that.
too.
Look at this. I know you both know what I'm going to say. in our society.
Take us there, Stephanie. Take us there.
There we go. No, but in our society, the idea of control is celebrated and rewarded. You know, when you are an organized person, when you're a successful project manager, like all these jobs or skills, attributes that certain jobs require, and what you need to show in just like the modern world. Everything seems to revolve around efficiency and what can you get done, and time is money, and all of those nonsense things that, you know, for someone like me who you know tries to add a bit more spirituality into my life these days, I'm realizing how this idea, coming back what you said, Amanda, control is this like very icky, contracting feeling of, bah, you know, like, this is how I picture it all the time. And it doesn't get us anywhere, you know. We feel like we have to control it because we're scared, or we have this effort approach of, if I just work hard enough, I'm gonna be rewarded, because our society role models that for us effort equals success. And I would argue that so many of us, if we allow things, if we let go of the control, if we just let it flow, if we schedule a little less and just, you know, being present, and I feel like we're like so connecting all these topics right now. If we're letting things be what they need to be, and try and just look at what is in front of us, and not like the next 218 steps that we may want to take or not, but just what is right in front of us. I think this is when everything starts to expand, when we can lean back and, you know, take a deep breath, and everything will magically work itself out. I think that's hard, right? It's hard to not try and control all the time, because again, our society preaches that to us. It even rewards that, and it creates this illusion almost, also because so many, again, jobs or courses are based off of that, right? It tells you, okay, I'm going to help you overcome procrastination, I'm going to help you be the most time efficient entrepreneur on this planet, or whatever, right? So it speaks into this fear that we all have, that, oh, I must be more productive, oh, I'm not a hardworking person, so I can never be an entrepreneur, right? Like, I'm not a workaholic, so I can't have my own business, or whatever. So these all of these messages that we receive every day, I think it sounds very exhausting, right? And making this switch to saying, you know what, screw all of this, I'm gonna let go, I'm gonna allow. That's an exciting journey. I want to say I'm not there where I really want to be on this journey, but I would say I've definitely embarked on it. And really magic happens when we start to let go, and we just allow, everything starts to expand, and things are magically falling into place without the hard effort. And maybe we would even get to where we want to go with the hard effort approach, but I would say that it's a lot harder, and that we just don't have as much joy on the journey. I think it needs to be joyful. Anything we do in life, look, we gotta have fun with it. Otherwise, it's not worth pursuing.
I'm really glad you landed there, Stephanie, because this has been, to me, the switch in this whole entrepreneurial journey. And I'm gonna go there because the three of us, we all have like our own dreams and running our own businesses, and, you know, doing these types of things. And, you know, I know for me personally, my path to entrepreneurship has not been straightforward. It has not been like, I had this idea, I go out, I make the website, I launch the ads, I grow the 6 figures. Like, no, not at all. To me, my path has been a path of becoming, and then also unbecoming, you know? And it has been, and this morning, right before our call, I got up this morning and I sat down and I was going to do some writing, and I pulled out my journal and I just started to, like, you know, play around with the pages and just kind of go into a free flow state of what's coming up for me. And I started to, and you had also said, Stephanie, around like this, like sometimes we get so focused on the goals, we get so focused on the plan that we never actually move anywhere because we're so paralyzed by the plan. We're paralyzed by all of the big vision and the big to do. And I found myself in this space for so many years where, I don't know, I can go back 8, 9, maybe 10 years, go back to old journals and look at journal entries around starting my own business and what that looks like and the big dreams that I had. And my big dreams paralyzed me. And instead of, I was always so focused on productivity, and I was always so focused on like achieving the goal and creating the destination and powering through, that I became paralyzed because I was so afraid of the big dreams, the big goals, the big vision. It was so heavy that I couldn't even move. And this morning, as I was like doing this journaling, I realized, I was like, I wrote something down around like what happens if you just be, again, coming back to the word for 2024 for me. What if you just be, instead of having it all mapped out, instead of having it all figured out, you know, what if you just be in the moment? And so I allowed myself to say, okay, what do I want to do right now? What is the vision? What is the goal right now? And so often, I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned in my entrepreneurial journey so far, and now coaching thousands of entrepreneurs over the last 2.5 years, like, everybody gets so caught up in the big goal, the big dream, that it actually paralyzes us. It keeps us fearful of like, oh, I'm never going to achieve that. Oh, I'm not good enough to achieve that. And, when we're just in the moment and we're being and we're going, okay, this is what I want to create. Okay, let me go out and create it. Let me just give myself total permission to put it out there, to create. I don't know where it's going to take me. And you just act from that place of being versus like trying to plan and coordinate and perfect. Magical things happen. And I think one of the things that, for me, um, what I realized was, there needs to be, in the business space, in the entrepreneurial world, more talk about the magic, more talk about what happens when, we shift from a place of hustle to a place of heart, and we just allow our authentic selves to shine through. And it's like, that's my sweet spot. That's where I could talk about this every single day of my life, and like, that's the stuff that brings me joy. It's like, who are we being? you know how are we showing up? Where does our authenticity lie? What is our uniquenesses? What makes us original? What makes us quirky? Like, those are what I call like the little magic moments that really help you stand out and define yourself. And anyway, I don't know where this is going, but it's just that, like, it's that whole idea of like, what happens when we shift from doing to being, and we embrace the magic of the moment.
Yeah, what happens? Great question. And I want to reflect back even just to the three of us that this right here is what happens. This is the magic. I mean, this is from the get-go, from when we even started this whole podcast idea, right? That's where we were, and I think that's where we've always been and where we've always stayed. And I think that's really the beauty in pursuing projects that feel just so effortless and fun and exciting and authentic and in alignment with who we are, and just are so purposeful, and they feel like they're purpose driven. Because I think every time since the very beginning, when we decided we were going to do this, to this point today, everything has always felt that way. And I think if that's any example of how we just are doing versus being, this to me, anytime I'm like, what is that? The podcast always comes to my mind in being just a beautiful example of what that means, especially in, I mean, come as you are, like, hello. It says it in the name. And we stand true to that, right? And we do just show up and just be. Every single time we're just being. So I'm definitely appreciating that and walking away with a sense of knowing what that means. Because I think oftentimes with a lot of these concepts, they may not necessarily be new to us. We've heard it before, right? Doing versus being, and maybe just because, I don't know, I'm in the coach world, so I hear it that much more. I don't know. But I think these ideas of authenticity, the idea of being passionate about something. Again, I don't know if this is just, from my perspective in the world, because this is the work that I do, but I think there's a lot of talk about these things. But how do we actually live that? How do we actually be that? And sometimes I think we need examples of that so that we can really understand what that means. At least that's from my experience, where I'm like, okay, I'm hearing this. I get it in theory, but what does that mean when it's applied? Like, what does that look like? What does that feel like? Because there's a different experience when you're actually living out the being and not just saying, yeah, I'm, my word for this year is being, right? Like, and well, what does that mean? And so when we can have those examples and when we can have those ideas of what that really truly looks like or feels like for us, it's empowering, it's inspiring, and gets me super excited for our episodes next year. But
Oh gosh, yes, I feel all the warm fuzzy feelings now that you've said this, and I can just echo that what we're doing here, this project is my golden standard for anything. The way that we show up, we're just ourselves, and bringing this joyful energy to it, and being so passionate about this. We're like all three sitting here, and the synergy that we create every time when we're together it's immeasurable, and it's epic, and we know that everyone who sees this can feel this too. Like we're not here to just have a pretty podcast and talk about stuff. We're really here for the deep stuff, for the beautiful stuff, for the messy stuff, for the vulnerable stuff. And we love this space here so much. And for everything that I do, like at this time in my life, everything I do, if I think about a new project or meeting new people, I just like feel inside of myself, right? Connecting with my intuition. And I think this is a big part of how does it look like, what you mentioned, this question you asked, Amanda. And gee, I wish we were at the beginning of our episode today, because I feel like we could talk about this for a really long time, this idea of how do you actually do this in like daily life? How do you be being, right? Like, this is a big question. But really, what I do is like I tap into my intuition and I ask myself, does it feel joyful? Does it feel like I'm really passionate about this? And if it doesn't spark the same kind of excitement that I experience here in this space, I'm like, it's not meant to be. Like it needs to be this kind of, yeah, just it needs to feel right. And I would say that this tuning into intuition and really feeling into, does this align with who I am today, and will this align with who I want to become tomorrow? That's something that is not easy. This is something that I've worked really hard for and done a lot of self-development on to get to this place, to be so comfortable with my intuition. Like that's but again, like I know we're coming to an end, and we need to talk about this again in the future. This whole topic of like, how do you basically do passion and purpose in daily life? This is the best topic ever, right? Like I see like all our faces are like, oh my God. But I will leave it at that. And I guess I will give it to Tyler for last words.
I love this space, and I love the work that we are doing. And I feel that every time I come and I show up here, just a deep sense of gratitude. And we just, I don't know, we've created a really special space, and I cannot wait to see what comes in 2024. And I think with that, I'm just going to sign off by wishing every single one of you who listens to our show, whether live or a replay, just have a wonderful end of your 2023. And I really hope that your 2024 is a year of presence and just being. So with that, goodbye everyone. Have a happy holidays. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you in 2024. That's insane. Bye.
Bye everybody. See you next year.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Come As You Are, the podcast. You can follow the show on Instagram at Kaya the Podcast, and on YouTube and Facebook by searching Kaya the Podcast. If you haven't already done so, please help us keep the conversations going by subscribing, rating, reviewing, and sharing this podcast. And be sure to join us next time for another deep conversation.